Welcome back, everyone, to the Cancel for Maintenance podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we are a podcast that takes a behind-the-scenes look into the gritty, non-glamorous life of aviation maintenance. We share some laughs, impart some wisdom, all in hopes of giving you that split-second relief in your day that can prevent a mishap. I am Six.
I'm MVP.
And our third man, Shoreline, is in the back silently making sure our audio is good to go and that our faces stay fit for radio. So today, we're kind of branching off a little bit about total quality management, and we want to dive a little bit deeper into what we know as lean, but some people might have a different understanding of what lean is, and there might be some misconceptions of what lean does. So to start things off, like lean, we kind of explained in previous episodes how it kind of took the concepts of total quality management and for the most part was heavily influenced by the Japanese of their applications of it. And the whole idea of lean is to, in a nutshell, is to reduce waste. By waste, we mean like things are taking too long, you're producing too much, you're doing too much of something that's complicating the process. So by leaning out, like we're streamlining the whatever the process is, so we get a quality output with the least amount of problems, if that makes any sort of sense. And one valuable tool that goes into this, and it's also heavily used when it comes to process improvements, quality assurance, and aviation in general, is value stream mapping. MVP, if you want to elaborate a little bit more on value stream mapping.
Yeah, value stream mapping, for those of you who don't know, it's essentially value added versus non-value added. What do you do in your processes that's, that brings value to you? Essentially, what is the customer willing to pay for? What is bringing money to your program, to your job? What are you doing to that aircraft that the customer is willing to pay for versus what you're not willing to pay for, right? So here's an example from like my days in the AOG realm. So the customer is paying you to be there for maintenance, but if you troubleshoot down to parts and you're waiting on parts, that time you're waiting is not paid by the customer. That time is paid overhead by your employer. So you'll probably know, if you've done that before, that you've had multiple charge numbers. You're charging to a work order for that aircraft. But when you're in waiting time, you're charging to your overhead or whatever else. And I'm sure your company is billing that out to somebody else down the way, or at least part of it. But the goal is to minimize that wait time so the company pays less overhead. So what do you do in the meantime, right? Okay, well, let's say for me, example, I started out in Van Nuys, was working an aircraft. All right, I'm down to waiting on parts. All right, well, that part's going to be here in 4 hours. Okay, when that time, hey, MVP, head your way down to Santa Monica. There's another aircraft there. Well, what does that need? Is that one down to parts? No, that one just needs a checklist done. Okay, cool. Oh, but wait, you found something wrong during that checklist. All right, I need a part. Well, that one's going to be here in 4 hours. Cool. Now I got to head back to Van Nuys because I'm at the point where that part's going to start showing up. So you find yourself running all over the place, but it's all in an effort to minimize that non-value added time. You try to keep as much time chargeable as you can, right? Value added tasking. So I have a little chart here and I'm going to read from it, but it's basically analyzing the time, value added versus non-value added. So under the value added work, we have changes the form, fit, function of a product, the physical transformation of the product, and the customer would be willing to pay for. An activity, if skipped, would affect the value, performance of the product or service. And examples of that would be assembling, machining, painting, molding, packing and shipping, internal inspection. Right. So those are value added items. So when you see like physical transformation of a product, all right, we've all modded an aircraft, right? And we have engineers and they say, hey, if we add these winglets, you're going to get 10% more, fuel efficiency. Okay. You present that to the customer. Hey, we've got this, you can save 10% on your fueling if you install these mods. Is it necessary? No, the customer can keep operating their aircraft as it is, but they might be willing to pay for that to save more money on fuel. Pay a one-time cost for this mod here to save fuel in the long run. Just an example. Under the non-value added required, activities creating no value but require the product out the door and which cannot be eliminated based on the current state of thinking or technology, required by regulatory, legal, or mandated by customer, necessary due to non-robustness of a process. Examples of all this would be regulatory reporting, customer required testing or inspection, checking process or material properties, viscosity, pH levels, temperatures, etc. Order entry, processing, invoice billing, purchasing, training. So think about that. Most of us have to go through some form of training. Mm-hmm. The customer is not paying for that, but you have to do it to be able to work on their stuff. They're saying, "Hey, we only want certified people to work on our asset, but we're not paying for the training. That's responsibility of the maintenance outfit." Okay, or let's look at the order entry processing. Look at all your time to do paperwork. We all know paperwork's half of the maintenance job. But in many cases, the customer's not paying for that paperwork time. So I'm sure many of you have felt the pressure from your leads going, "Hey, are you done with that paperwork yet? Come on, let's get that done. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up." Or they'll try to push you to the point where they work you for most of the day and they try to get you to do paperwork the last 30 minutes of the day, which is we've already discussed as a massive mistake. But, yes. but there's some reasoning behind why they sort of push that way, right? They try to keep as many billable hours as possible while still maintaining, customer corporate doctrine adherence.
Right. Another one to add to that, going along with the regulatory stuff, it's non-value added because it's something you have to do, but it's not necessarily like a customer requirement. Example, say like PPE. Having to wear PPE or use certain PPE to do a certain task. It's required by law that you have to do it, but it's not really value added because the customer doesn't pay for you to do that. I mean, there might be some other incidental or incremental way to have that paid for, but for the most part, like the customer is not in charge of your safety. It's required that you have one, but it's not up to them to ensure that you're being billed correctly to do it. Another one is, say, the same regulatory requirement has some kind of baked in instruction in your maintenance manuals, like wear safety goggles when you're doing lock wire, or you have to have this kind of verbiage in your write-ups, something like that. It's all relatively the same thing. And again, with all these stuff, value added versus non-value added, this is how the bean counters who more or less write your check, how they figure out how to bill your statement of work, how to give you the projects or programs or funds, in the say, to do the work that you do, as MVP said it, like with charge numbers. Some call it work orders, or some call it statements of work. It's all relative. It's all synonymous with each other in some shape or form.
And essentially, there's cost pools behind all of that, right? The bean counters are that's why when they say they want accurate time reporting, right? How much hours did you spend on this work order on this one, XYZ? How much was on overhead? That helps for allocation of funds. But you can also go back and say, holy cow, 6 was, out of this pay period, 6 was billable 60 of 40 hours, right? He got some overtime in. He was billable, more than his base hour requirement. Whereas they could go, MVP was billable 15 out of 40 hours. What the heck did we have in him do? We obviously aren't, we aren't utilizing that individual right. Or you could say, hey, if we're only giving him billable 15 out of what's the jobs we're giving him? Oh my gosh, we're giving him very baseline servicing. He goes out and he checks oil levels and services the lab. Well, I mean, while necessary, we can probably allocate those tasks to somebody who's already working on the aircraft, such as six.
Yep. And that's also along with, like, say, the man hours too. I mean, how many times have we been there where your leads or your manager, supervisor would say, like, I could only have so many people on an aircraft or on a specific task. It's not because we're trying to be like dicks about it. It's because, like, certain charge numbers or certain cost pools can only allocate so much for so many people. And we actually got in trouble for this once where, like, say you have a specific task and it's only allocated to account for 2 or 3 technicians, and you stick 5 of them onto the project, thinking that, or to the task, sorry, thinking that, oh, hey, it's going to get done faster because we have 5 or 6 people on it. But, you know, say like the job was called for 2 hours and you got it done in 30 minutes, but there were 6 people on it. You're paying 30 minutes for each individual person, which basically adds up past those allocated hours. And now each one has their own specific rate, which now they have to figure out and all this and that. So it's air quote doable, and there's value a little bit to that. But as far as like that cost pool is concerned, all they see is like there's 6 people on a 2-person job. So what the fuck are you doing? Right.
Yeah. Let's look at another non-value added required. Look at I think most of us probably have an environmental health and safety group within our area of operation, or maybe those of you working in a line somewhere, you might not have somebody specifically there with you, but the airfield has them. You got open fuel cell maintenance, right? You're in there, you're diving tanks, but you see that person walking around with the sniffer. I can't remember the official name for it, but it basically takes air quality samples and lets you know how many fuel particulates are in the air and if the area is safe enough to work, right? Mm-hmm. So typically you'll pop tanks and then you got to vent the building for X amount of time until the air quality reads whatever and deemed safe enough for humans to operate and work within. Well, you know, the customer's not paying for that safety rep to be there, that health and safety rep to be there taking those air quality readings. That's required, you know, by federal regulation. So customer says, why would I pay for that when it's the government who's requiring you to do this? So right. that's what you call, you know, your kind of, you know, like indirect overhead type stuff.
Yes. And I'm glad you mentioned that as well, because between that and other air quotes indirect charges, let's call it that, indirect charges, it seems very over their heads for the most part, but all these different charges add up over time, and the only way to recoup that is to produce more, right? So that's kind of like where we find ourselves, like we're working longer so we can do more flights, or we're doing more work or more worker hours. So that all that stuff kind of adds up over time. So we're thinking like, okay, why are we having such a convoluted process? And it's all because a lot of that indirect cost pool charging, just they have to balance it some way, somehow. And either that or we just start cutting people, which we have seen from time to time. And some organizations do that where they kind of they eliminate the issue by eliminating the amount of people who can charge to it, which is not exactly right, but given that what they have available to use versus the people they have, you know, then that's where we have those issues. So why value stream mapping for one? Again, it goes that value added versus non-value added. And what this does, it gives you the opportunity to really map out what your processes are.
Yeah. Well, and maybe before we get into mapping the processes, right, mm-hmm. we got to cover the non-value added examples first.
Okay, gotcha.
But I did want to mention, you know, when we talk about these cost pools and everything, it also helps you develop a per unit cost, right?
Yes.
Yes. So you can say, okay, on average, we work, 18 work orders in a 24-hour period, and we have this much direct labor charging and this much indirect. And you can kind of break there's some math behind it, and I won't dive into it on here just because I'd probably butcher it, and I think it would be much easier if there's some really good YouTube videos out there. So all of you kind of want to deep dive this more, look into that, but it'll math it out, and it kind of breaks it down into these, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like allocated cost, or essentially it gets you add up all these numbers and you divide it by how many units you produce. So if we did 18 work orders and we had all these other numbers, right? We had, and then we divide them, and then we get a per unit cost. And you look at that and you can say, okay, I know that to each work order, I have X amount of technicians I'm charging this time, but in order to account for these additional overhead costs or these indirect costs, I have to apply this per unit cost on top of what I'm charging the customer. So I'll use the AOG side again, for example. Actually, I won't. I'll use when I used to travel overseas. So I was getting paid, let's say at the time, I was getting paid $25 an hour. But the company was charging the customer $180 an hour. And so, why are we explaining this? Because a lot of you go, why aren't they just paying me that $180 an hour? Because there's so many other costs and things that have to be paid for out of that $180, right? It has other things tacked into it so for every hour that 6 works, I have to apply this rate to it in order to be able to pay salaries and insurances and building rent and all these other kind of things, right? So that's kind of why those maths are important to understand. I know it's frustrating. We all go $180 an hour and they're paying me $25. Man, to hell with them. I get it, been there, but there's reasonings behind it. Not everybody knows that, and that's kind of why we're trying to explain this, is to give you a little bit better of an understanding and to make you smarter within your own organization. So as you get pulled into these upper level meetings and they're talking about funding, and instead of all being the matrix screen, the ones and zeros, you have a good understanding, and you can almost provide input and say, hey, we can trim some fat over here. Hey, Six and I have been running this last few jobs together, but in all reality, one of us could do it. So he could be on one plane, I could be on the other. And then we can cross over, inspect each other's work real quick, keep all hours billable, and then boom, we're there. Or you say, I split us up and we can knock out 2 planes at a time and one of us charged to each work order. Different stuff like that.
Right. And understanding what that does and what that means and how it works will not only bring value to your organization, but also to yourself, because now you're that thinking person. You're that one who solves problems, who consistently knows where the gaps and choke points are, and you have a means or an ability to address it. And
we'll look at it this way too, right? So let's say you're working for a company now, but let's say you want to branch out and start your own business. We have a Patreon right now who's done exactly that. And these are some things he's going to have to start looking into as his business grows. Right now, it's a team of one, but as his quality of work is high and the customers that he has likes his work, they're going to start telling their friends in the business, hey, I got this guy here. Excellent. You're really going to want him for this job, man. Killer work, on time, in under budget kind of thing. So eventually he's going to get more customers. Well, what do you do with more customers? You got to get more people. And then he's going to have to start breaking things down like this, not only for tax reasons, but for business sustainability. You got to track these kind of things. As much as math as I don't like, but necessary for business sustainability.
Right. I mean, we've all been there, and we kind of joked amongst ourselves as well. Like, most of the math that we do use, it's not something we like, right? Like, or it's we do it, but we don't realize it. Like example, we joke around to ourselves is mathing out how much sleep you can get. You know, if you just kind of forego a couple activities, like if I don't do a little bit of this, or if I skip on that, I can hit the snooze button like 3 or 4 more times before I'm 5 minutes late to work or some shit like that. You know,
it's weird. I can't do simple math in my head, but I can sit there and look at my clock and go, if I fall asleep right now, I'll get exactly 3 hours of sleep, 3 hours and 15 minutes of sleep. That's exactly 450,000 seconds. I'm making up numbers, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's amazing how you can math things in that regard. But somebody's like 2 + 2 MVP, and you're like, oh, the letter S, you know?
Right. Another one, just going off topic real quick, is also like what we call meathead math. You know what I mean? Like when you're at a gym.
Oh yeah.
You know, like you could just look at a set of weights and just go, yeah, I can do that. That's 90 pounds. Like 2 big boys, that's 90 pounds. I can do that, or something like that.
Yeah, or it's like your protein powder. You're like, okay, 2 scoops is exactly 45 grams of protein, weighing approximately 2 ounces. And, you know, like,
yeah,
it's amazing how you can math things that you're interested in.
Yes, and that's exactly it, what you're interested in, right? So to not to go too deep into the math about value stream maps, like again, BP said, there's like way better explanations out there that can give full-on illustrations of how to help it stick for you. But to like kind of simplify it, hopefully not to oversimplify it, with value stream maps is the first step is you got to identify the process, right? You got to know what you're doing. There is this one quote, I can't remember who said it, and God forbid me, like, don't come after me. But if you guys know it, please tell us. It goes, if you can't explain what you do as a process, then you don't know what you're doing. So that's kind of what value stream mapping does. It has you break down what you do into steps. And then once you have made that out, you've kind of figured out the math as to what each step does. If it either adds value, doesn't remove value, or it actually hurts you, then you can start going on the lines of like creating like a current state or a current state map of the process, what it is doing now, and
right.
then kind of like what's your dream process, like what would you like it to do?
Right. So that consists of you identifying the non-value added. All you out there are like, they didn't get over the non-value added items, and they said they would. They sidetracked on cost centers and cost pools. Real quick. All right. So to understand your process and how to make it better, you've got to identify what non-value is within it. So non-value added items: waste, any unnecessary activity or excessive use of a resource, activities that should be eliminated as they're creating no value for the customer, any just in case action or resource, i.e., inspections, inventories, like doubled on inspections and inventories. Are we already doing this? Okay. Well, why do we have a second one? Oh, well, the first one, it's not working out. Well, is anybody going to kick the people who do the first ones in the ass and tell them to do better or replace them? Anyways, I'm just being, that's an aggressive stance, but here we go.
Yeah.
So examples of this are downtime, right?
Yes.
We talk about that waiting period. External inspection, meaning like a third party, a third party coming in. Testing for defects or spec nonconformance. So, the next rework, returns, redo, reinspect, repair. Basically, you did it wrong the first time. Now you have to go back and do it. That's all on your company's dime.
Mm-hmm.
So you could look at some of these and go, testing for defects or specs or whatever. Like that should be no. That's a necessary part of the process, right? But that's built into the test plan.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things are built into the test plan. So a lot of people, a lot of projects, let's use software, for example. They'll go through and the different development teams, they'll build, test, and then they'll go to the next stage. They'll build this, test, build this, test, build this, test. At the end, they have one massive chunk of coding, and then they'll do a final test, which should take not as much time as it would be if you tested none of it up front. and then had to go back to square one and start fixing things. But if you test fix as you're going and build that into your schedule, that's being lean, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So let me give another example. As within my own realm of work, one of the contracts I've been going through one of the processes and determining, trying to figure out how we can do some value stream mapping. Well, one of the areas I identified is we have, and this is for maintenance manual development, right? This one contract. So they have, if you look at it, you have, okay, what do we need to create it for? Oh, we need X system, a maintenance manual created for this system. Cool. We've got inputs from the engineers. Now we just need to start typing. Okay, boom, boom, boom. We type it out. Okay, well, now the people typing should be proofreading themselves along the way. All right, fine. Easy enough. Then we have a senior tech review. Okay. Then we have a tech supervisor review. Okay. Then we have, for lack of a better term, I can't remember what the official title is called, but it's a tech writer quality tech writer. Let's call them that. And then they do a review. And then guess what? It comes to quality assurance for the final review. And you could say all this is added value if I don't find anything, but we continually find defects. How come we've gone through 4 different supposed checks and we're still finding problems? Somebody's not doing their job. So then you start looking into it and talking with the tech group, right? Okay, hey, we have these 4 levels of inspections. I'm still finding stuff. Yeah, that's your job. Right. But with 4 people in front of me, I should find nothing. So you guys are pressuring me to increase my inspection time because you took so long over here. We could validate that if there were no findings on the back end. But there are findings on the back end. So something's got to give here in the middle. So if I'm finding and fixing on the back end at the very end of this module, then I should be able to, then we can trim some fat here. So as I started looking into it, the quality tech writer, will sit on, we'll take 2 weeks to review and then give it to us and say, hey, you guys got 24 hours to review and get this back to us. What the hell? No, we've been budgeted and allocated for 5 days for review. Yeah, but we took too long on this one. That's not my problem. So sitting in a meeting the other day and I started asking these questions and the quality tech writer goes, hey, I'm going to be going, out on vacation. So, these modules I'm not going to finish. So what do we got to do? What happens now? And the supervisor goes, well, I guess we'll just skip you and we'll just send it over to quality. Skip it. Oh, okay, that's fine. And so I go, wait, we can skip the quality tech writer section? Yeah, I mean, we've done it before. Like if we're behind schedule, we'll just skip them. Or if we're, if they're not here, we'll just skip them. I'm like, so a step that can be skipped, out of convenience, that sounds like it's of no added value. So we can remove that step. And so we have. Now you could say, oh, MVP, you bastard, you got somebody fired. No, I didn't get anybody fired. We just reallocated them for better use of their time or for something else, That's where we're getting at is like, hey, we're paying a lot of out of overhead for these inspections. And you could justify it if I found nothing at the final review. But I shouldn't be finding the stuff that I'm finding. You could say, well, that's the purpose of the final inspection of QA. Gotcha. But I shouldn't be finding grammatical errors, right? In these modules. Or I shouldn't be finding wrong charts. Or, okay, let's say I'm doing a module for a tire change and they have a fuel pump, like a diagram in there. What the hell? Come on, I shouldn't be finding this at the final stage. Like the guy writing it should have caught that,
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just a very broad overview example of something very recent that I found for value stream mapping and say, okay, I've got this map. Here's the process. Now the next level down is like taking out the quality tech writer position. All right, I've shrunken that up. Now let me see if I can take what else I can take out in that inspection. We should just have maybe the guy who wrote it, guy or gal, I'm just sorry for the general, but person who wrote it. Then we have maybe the supervisor, and then it comes to quality, right?
Yeah.
We should be able to take out at least half of those inspections.
Right. I liked how you mentioned, like, towards the beginning, like, the just in case stuff. I mean, as cool as that is, there's a lot of just in case that tries to account for a little too much, if you catch my drift. If any of you get catching, because as MVP has alluded, there's a lot of extra steps where in theory it's good for you, because if everything worked out right, then there shouldn't be zero errors, and it's basically like a rubber stamp from the quality assurance standpoint before they move on with the final what have yous of whatever product or service. But as MVP said, like, when you have too many just in case steps, you're just convoluting the end phase of that product or service and then if you're still finding problems, then like, why do we even have you? Right.
Well, I think you get to the point where you have too many just in cases. You get the exact opposite of what you were trying to prevent. And if I'm the guy who wrote it, or I'm the supervisor, I go, I don't have to devote a lot of my time to looking at this, because the quality tech writer is going to look at it, and then QA, they'll find whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not doing. So then you get people a little bit complacent, right? Okay, I can kind of put out a half-assed product initially. My times and my hours are going to look phenomenal. Oh my gosh, MVP was able to crank out 75 modules in 1 week. That's impressive. Like, it's taking him 30 minutes a module. That's amazing. All right, that does look amazing for him. Now let's go to QA. Hey, guys, I found out of a 40-step maintenance task, I found 37 errors. And it's like, oh, well, okay, his times are great because he's doing a shit job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're doing the maintenance. Hey, how did you get a phase a major maintenance, like a phase inspection done? It's supposed to take a week and you got it done in 2 days. Like, that's unheard of. Yeah, well, if you skip half the stuff you're supposed to do, you can pretty easy, right?
Yeah, right. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. That's really hitting me home right now, because I've actually seen people do that. We're like, well, can't you just like do the inspection and call it good? I'm like, yeah, I can do that, but you're gonna get a lot of post-phase write-ups that you are gonna have to fix, right? So, I mean, whatever, it's been through the process on my end, so that's what I give a shit, right? But if the goal is to have a conforming, ready, flyable aircraft, then you kind of want me to do those extra steps, absorb them in my own, right? So at least, like, when the inspection is finished, that means all the due processes for it is completed as well. A little bit over the top, but yeah, basically the same thing. And that's kind of like what we consider over processing, right?
Right.
Or having
thinking it ties into the non-value added required, right? So
Yeah.
Let me go back to, okay, I have a 40-step maintenance task, and I found 37 anomalies. Okay, well, as QA, I have to report that, right? That's part of my metrics. Okay, I review these many modules. This module had this many findings, this many findings. That gets reported to the customer. So when the customer goes, you keep coming at me telling me you need more funding or more time or whatever, but why would I pay for that when I'm not getting a good product?
right.
Like, why would I pay for more when you can't give me something decent now? Oh, well, more will allow us to be better. Will it though?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Exactly. I kind of want to go a little bit too about like the under processing. Like you said, that you have an underperforming person, right? That there's in my mind, there's like so many wastes that come from that. First, it's the fact that the person's underperforming, which is already a freaking enormous waste, and then the fact that this person kicks out an under processed product or service that now turns into defects. That's another problem, and then having to recycle all that back to make it right in hopes the second time. So that's a third one. We've essentially made 5 wastes just from one under processed section, whether it be person who caused it or if it was a machine or whatever that caused it. You've essentially created 5 wastes, and I think we've all seen this before, or at least if we've been the lead of a shop, we've seen this before, is when you have unused talent in your shop. That in itself is a massive waste. I mean,
I'm glad you were saying that, because I was just about to jump in that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so like that in itself is a massive waste, because if you have a person who you hired, for instance, who's very innovative, very talented, very good at their job, and you're not applying that person to the extent of their abilities, that turns into unused talent, and that person eventually he's gonna scale back to what you apply them to, if that makes any sort of sense. Like if this guy or if this person is a star performer and you give him subpar tasks, guess what he or she's gonna do? Eventually, they're gonna start turning into subpar performers, and you just wasted like however much % of their talent just because like you couldn't employ them properly.
Right. Or they're going to go above and beyond and say, okay, all right, you got me sweeping floors. So I'm going to keep coming to my boss every day. Hey, I put this white paper data together, which is essentially a proposal, right? I got this proposal. If we get 4 Roombas, that'll allow me to keep these 4 main hallways clean at all times, which will allow me to focus on restrooms A and B. And I can focus my mornings on that, cleaning those to the best of my ability. And then afternoons can be. And then if we get this automated trash system, or if I get this cart with towing capabilities, I can take all garbage from hangar 5 out to the dumpster at one time, rather than having to make multiple trips as I'm doing now. Right? They're still trying to be that overachiever for the trivial task you've given them. And I'm not knocking, janitorial service as a trivial task, but it's just an example of if you are a airframer, a sheet metal artist, and I'm having you sweep floors instead of doing these crazy mods or repairs, like I'm wasting your talent. Same thing. If I have an airframer, a sheet metal artist, and I have you tracing wires, and you've never done that before, why? Well, our avionics tech called out for the day. Okay, we don't have a backup avionics tech. We don't have I'm all for cross training, but like, you can't throw somebody in cold and expect them to overperform.
Right. Exactly.
Like me, right? I'm built like a beanbag chair, partially deflated beanbag chair, and you say, okay, MVP, I need you to jump in this pool and beat Michael Phelps in the 100-meter freestyle. It ain't happening. And then you're going to be, what the hell? How come you couldn't beat him? We put you in. Yeah, but I've not done this before. It's like,
yeah. Or what's that one joke we've always said before? Like, you can't like judging how a fish can climb a tree or something like that.
Yeah, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its life thinking it's stupid or something like that. It's
yeah. And again, that's a massive waste, and that's probably one of the most severe wastes. I mean, on top of everything else, right? But having that having that type of talent and just sitting there being not utilized to its full capability. And we've all been there before. We're kind of like dying inside, right? Because you feel all jazzed up because you're in an organization that you feel is going to expand your horizons or expand your talents. And then they just say, okay, here, man, like, go drill out these fasteners
paint the grass green. Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. Go mow some dirt, and you're like, well, shit. Well, this is not what I signed up for. And either A, they're going to downgrade themselves to whatever you set them to, or they're just going to leave altogether. Now you're short a person.
Right. They're just going to move on. Yeah. Go mop. Hey, it's raining. Go mop the parking lot. Right on. Well, here's my 2-week notice. And also today is my last day. So I'm just going to double gun you right now and head on out of here.
Head on out here. Hell yeah. Right. And, this is all part of the big, massive methodology that is lean. And I think I'm going to put this out there real quick that a lot of what we know as lean, especially us as aircraft mechanics, we get a very bad rap of what that is, because for lean, especially, or even value stream mapping, it's very easy, air quote, easy to get some kind of certification or training or whatnot. It's kind of like me, like I sit you in a classroom, I tell you what it is, kind of like what we're doing now. You listen to us talk about lean. It's like, okay, cool, I'm certified. I'm go do lean things. And they don't know how to apply the tools properly, or they're more set on using the tools and not really practicing which one's the best fit for implementing a proper lean procedure. So a lot of us on the line of stuff, like we just kind of see lean or the guys implementing lean as an extreme nuisance because we don't see any real problems being solved. They're just kind of consolidating them and rebranding the solution, or the same thing as a different solution, stuff like that. So, but what this can do for us essentially is if you understand how the process is supposed to work and how the various methods you can use to actually put value added, it's a pretty robust methodology if you really think about it. Like, and sometimes you're doing it and you don't even realize it. It's just like sometimes you got to have things set on paper. Or you kind of have to see like a no kidding map of how it's supposed to work. Right? Oh, okay, I get it. So, in a nutshell, like it sounds bad. It doesn't sound like it's actually bringing anything of value. But when you actually use it correctly, and you've kind of figured out the two steps in the whole process of things, which is figure out what you're doing and make a decision, then you can actually like create a process or create a chain of events or a flow that's actually helpful to you and your organization. Sorry, I went on a huge tirade about that.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I mean, it's essential. You might not seem so, but it is kind of essential for your business's long-term sustainability, right? You should always be looking for ways to improve your process. Okay, let's use this for an example. I'm working on aircraft in Hangar 1, but we keep all of our hazmat, right? Oils, hydro fluids, whatever. We're keeping all that down in Hangar 5. Well, between those hangars is about 1,000 yards, and and guess what? In Hangar 1, we do line servicing checks only. We're not doing heavy maintenance, so you're constantly using fluids, topping off levels, whatever else. So you're either you're walking down there, cycling down there. If you're lucky enough, you got a golf cart, but that's time wasted, right? It would make sense to keep at least some oils and fluids in all hangars, or if we're primarily using them in Hangar 1, as we've allocated that building to be the servicing check station, then why not move them there? So instead of having mechs and technicians wasting time going and getting oil every 30 minutes, they can walk just to the edge of the hangar, open the flam locker, and boom, there it is. Like just stuff like that. I'm sure many of you out there are probably by this point looking at your own organization and going, what is excess here? And I'm sure you'll find something almost immediately.
Right.
And so with that, that's a great exercise, right? Everything we've kind of talked about, it's better for you. It'll help you grow professionally. It'll help you grow into your director of maintenance positions, to look at things this way. So as an exercise, I'll challenge you all to go out there and look at your own organization and see what you can find, and then bring that up to your superiors. Bring that up at your maintenance meeting. Get it in the hands and the eyes of the people who can make those decisions. And I bet you'll see a very positive result out of that. And if they say, hey, we can't change it because we're required by contracts to keep oils in 5 and not in 1. Well, now you've just learned something about your contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like for you all to go and look at your own areas, and then hit us up. Let us know what you found, and when you brought it up, and kind of the reaction you got, and what was done about it. Was anything done? or was nothing done? And if something was done to fix it, what was done to fix it? If nothing was done, what was the reason behind it? If you were given a reason. I know some of us are told to we get books thrown at us and told to get the hell out of the office, but just ask, like, hey, why are we not doing something about this? Oh, we don't have the budget for it. Interesting. Well, you see, and then you can go back and reevaluate, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you see, if we keep oils in hangar 1, we're saving X amount of dollars in one shift by these technicians not driving or walking 2,000 yards right there and back to acquire these oils. We lose 5 hours of productivity across 5 technicians a day because they have to go get these oils. Approach it from things like that. Put a dollar value to it if you can. I know it's a big ask. We don't see all those kind of things, but hell, if you do just a rough Google search on stuff or take hourly wages and an average of it and then break it apart like that, it gives a little more weight to it.
Yes.
I'd be curious to know what you guys find.
Yeah, please let us know. And let us know too, like, what part of these steps or what part of this process chain or this flow chain really helped you out the most, right? Was it really hashing out what the value-added, non-value-added stuff was? Or did you know that already and you kind of like, how do I turn what's present into the future? Whichever. Or which waste was more common, right? Like, whichever the case may be, let us know some of your feedback. We're very open to hear some of this. And this is something that MVP and I like do on a constant basis, especially nowadays with the way we're doing things for work nowadays. And from previous episodes where we talked about how everything is going 4.0 almost. Everything's going 4.0, that i.e. like the data analytics of things or big data of things. Understanding how value stream mapping and leaning principles work will really aid in that adjustment period, because it's better for you to know what the process is and know where it's going than for it to just happen to you and then you have to adjust for it. And again, like as MVP is challenged, like let us know, like what did you find? What did you see? Was it anything fixed? Was anything resolved? Or if it's just something like they just told you to kick rocks and do what I tell you to because I'm the one in charge and I'm the one who makes those decisions. Yeah. Whichever.
And I'll offer up our services, right? If you find something you're kind of unsure, I mean, run it by us and we'll give you our inputs on it.
Yes, most definitely.
We might have ran into it before, or you might bring something to us and we're going, holy hell, I didn't even think of that myself. Now I'm going to go look at my own organization for that, right? We're all going to learn something here from one another.
Yes, most definitely. Please let us know. Either hit us up on the social medias, in our emails, our website, or the best yet is go on Patreon and join our Discord. We have all kinds of conversations like this where we kind of hash out these kind of problems and figure out some kind of solution. Example is one of our patrons who's starting his own business. Like, I never knew that was a thing of how he's going about it, but now we're learning all together, and it's kind of like we're giving our inputs and our feedback, and we're kind of batting this back and forth of our thoughts and opinions, our professional thoughts and opinions about it. So we're hoping that all this helps you, and then just give us that feedback as well, whichever is the easiest way for you to reach us. And let us know, like, did we miss something? Is there something we need to add? Was there a tool or a method that you did that really helped things out? Share this out so we can all learn.
Yeah, if you'd like more explanation on anything we've talked about in this episode as well, just let us know, and we'll do our best to kind of deep dive it a little bit more and try to provide a little bit more explanation that might be, easier to understand or whatever,
Yes, most definitely. Please, by all means, we're very open for all that kind of feedback and questions and answers. Open all the time for that. Well, we hope that we've given enough about that, where it's not too oversimplified, but also not too in depth, because something like value stream mapping and lean and all the associated methods like Six Sigma and stuff like that, you can get lost in it very fast. It's kind of like you peel an onion and you realize how many layers upon layers upon layers it is. But ultimately, it's to realize that you're working with an onion instead of trying to get to the core of it. We'll leave that to you as far as like how deep you want to dive this. But as long as you understand like the principles of it and how to apply it. That's the biggest one. Any further comments on that, AVP?
No, you just meant peel back the layers of the onion. Don't be surprised when you peel back the layers of the onion in your work center that you found a hand grenade instead of the center of the onion.
This is so true.
No! Oh my God. This is way worse than I thought it was going to be.
All right. On that note, thanks everybody again for listening, and we'll see you again on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
We would like to take this time to thank our patrons for supporting our show and allowing us to make episodes, maintain our gear, and create merch for all of our listeners. With special thanks to Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Eric Shaw, Dan Schubert, Ryan Frushauer, Kyle Keir, Mike Sherwood, Caleb Stockhill, and Jennifer Brofer. Thank you all so much for your support and patronage. If you like our show, please support us on Patreon. You'll receive awesome perks like access to our private Discord, discounts and early access to our merch, first glimpse of our comics and other projects, and so much more. You can further support us and show off your prowess as an aircraft specialist by visiting our shop at cancelformaintenance.com. If you like classy or rugged watches, visit our affiliate Rockwell Time at rockwelltime.com. Use the code CX, the number 4MX to save 10% off your total order. If you have suggestions for the show or you'd like to be a guest on the show, send us a line on our contact us section at cancelformaintenance.com, and we'll do what we can to get both your ideas and yourself on the show. Please support us on social media like Facebook at Cancel for Maintenance, Instagram at CANX for Maintenance Podcast, or Twitter at CXMX Podcast. Please check out our new comic series on the Tapas app. Like, share, subscribe, and comment on our comics. Let us know what you think. Thank you all so much for your support and listenership, and we will catch you all next time.